There we go. This week in Artificially Informed, we're trying to retire the 60-year-old password. Yes, passwords turn 60. Watching a competitive intelligence firm get its own secrets stolen in the Klue breach. Unpacking Microsoft's quiet $10 billion breakup with OpenAI. And this and more in this week's edition of Artificially Informed. I am your host, Logan Edmonds with TTS Cyber.
I am Patrick Curter, founder of Your Network Security, and the guy who's going to have a coronary here any second.
Because of the news, because of life, because of both.
Oh, yeah, the news just kind of feeds into it all. You try to stay disconnected, and it just never stops.
It does not. It really doesn't. I'm actually going to try us on full screen this week because I think it's going to look a little better. So let's dive in, I guess, first and foremost, right? So a lot's going on. It always is. Seriously. Talk about a time to have a news channel about a specific topic. There's always something to talk about with AI. Let's go into the first section. So the headline for this week is going to be our security section, and it is the company that sells competitive intel just lost its own intel. Talk about this company, right? So it's the company Klue with a K, Klue. What happened?
Yep, supply chain attack on the security industry itself. It's kind of that scenario that you go, in the back of your mind it could happen. You know it would really, really suck, and then you see the news and you go, "Am I still dreaming? Am I dreaming?" But this is really this has downstream effects. Klue is a competitive intelligence platform, like you said. It collects data from multiple, like marketing. Business intelligence. It has a lot of very interesting information.
I mean, their customer list, we were probably impacted by this based on the article list: Gong, Jamf, HackerOne, OneTrust, Sprout Social. I mean, these are all companies that have reputation. And it looks like most of what spilled was business and contact information, i.e., actual how do I get a hold of the key people in this company, which is very useful if you're a social engineer, FYI. That's very useful. But the weirdest thing is it looks like the break-in wasn't the main objective, right? Not the actual stealing the data.
They're just it kind of goes. It wakes up more people than, like I said at the beginning, is that we kind of know this is in the back of your mind, but it is really a wake-up call that it's not just your own environment you need to be protecting. It's knowing your relationships and what those in the supply chain next door to you are doing with your information and your relationship, securing the supply chain.
I was just looking at the fact they immediately went to ransom. So one of the things that you and I talked a lot about is just the evolution of quote unquote ransom, right? Like it used to be 5 years ago. We heard about the Colonial Pipeline. I mean, 6 years actually. Wow, time flies. Hey, the refinery shut down because the computers didn't work. And obviously the world adapted to that in a lot of ways. I'm not saying it's still not a thing, but it's less of a thing. But the precedent it set doesn't seem to have gone anywhere, which is if you can disrupt a business big enough, they'll pay you to go away. It's just the mechanism disruptions change. In this case, it was, we have all your intelligence firm. We have all your sensitive information. We're going to dump this on the internet and talk about looking bad in a PR nightmare. You're an intelligence firm. You just lost all your intelligence. Pay us. They ransomed that. Pay us to go away. And we talked about 2 months ago about the Canvas hack and how a very similar situation, right? Like it does seem to be the modus operandum is disrupt the business, find leverage, and make it hurt so that you pay them to go away. And it's working. As much as I hate to say that as a defender, it is working.
Yeah, I mean, you kidnap the right princess, somebody's going to pay that ransom.
Well, yeah, and I feel bad and all these things to an extent as much as I can for big corporate entities, like downstream effects, right? Their suppliers, their vendors didn't play a role in this. They are faultless in this one instance, and they're probably going to have a blast radius associated with this that they have to deal with.
Right, and I don't like. I can come across as very admittedly the doomsayer on a lot of this stuff, but at least just to make people aware, when we're talking to clients about, smaller businesses oftentimes say, I'm too small to get hacked. And one of the things I try to use as an analogy is all the things that you do online are collected by all these marketing systems and all these business intelligence systems that bad guys and even legitimate guys have a dossier on you as an individual. That's your email or whether it's work or personal, like all this stuff is an interconnected web. You get a breach somewhere in there that has all that telemetry. That is super valuable. I'm not saying like be scared and all that stuff. Just be aware that this is out there.
Supply chains are one of those things where we're all interconnected. If you ever play the game of was it the 9 degrees or the 7 degrees from Kevin Bacon? I can't remember the term right there. Like we're all closer to each other than we think. And it's absolutely even more true in the business world. We're all just customers of each other and business to business. You get a big enough business, you're going to have a third of the business market's going to be impacted, right? Yep. Speaking of security, Password turned 60 this week. Wow. How do you feel about the concept of the password?
I'm still sticking with my password 1, man. Worked for me.
Gonna give me a coronary. Actually, it wasn't this week. I take back what I said. It turned 60 recently. And so fun fact about the password. It originally was never meant to be a security thing. It was always meant to be a resource thing. So back in the 60s, there was a supercomputer at a university, which I cannot quote off the top of me. Let me read the article. Doesn't talk about this. Okay, so this is going to be from Logan's Head, and you can look this up to this. I won't mention the university, but the idea was the supercomputer had budget attached because it was very expensive, even in the 60s, to run a supercomputer. And so each department had to put in a password to tell who was using it. So the university knew whose budget to bill. It was meant to be a billing mechanism, not a login mechanism. That was always designed the password. We took that and we ran with it, and we never stopped running with it. And I'll tell you right now, up there with social engineering and vulnerabilities, people just not changing their passwords or getting their passwords hacked and they don't know about it is the number 3 thing on my list. I'm like, everybody gets hit by this sooner or later. Doesn't matter how secure you are, your password will get stolen in some weird third-party breach, like we were talking about Klue, right? Company you had nothing to do with, didn't even know they're there, but somehow your password was caught up in that. A new solution that's come out with managing passwords, and I have a lot of feelings about it, is the concept of a passkey. Passkey uses an encryption methodology, sorry to get the word out right, to replace a password. Basically, it's a token, right? An access badge. You put it in your password manager. You probably, if you own a Mac, you've probably seen it come up. Hey, I'll make a passkey. And the idea is you don't type passwords, right? There's no way for you to be intercepted on the password. And because it's based on encryption, the traditional ways of stealing a password, I'll just take your password and log in on a different device. A lot harder. I say a lot harder, not impossible. When passkeys first came out, they were very much, people were like, oh, this is it. We're good. We'll never need another thing again. And then password managers started being able to share password keys. And then people started realizing they could transplant passkeys using their iCloud chain. All of a sudden now the game is, hey, go find the passkeys. I won't say it's a security like panacea. That being said, I can't stand passwords. And I think passkeys are a much more viable option and something that is only a net gain for most organizations with a minimal amount of friction. It's not perfect, but it does a good job. If you're interested to see what your current password status is, whether passkeys are useful for you or whether you have other security risks, we're running a special promo. If you scan the QR code above my head, you can go ahead and go to our online one-time cybersecurity risk analysis. With that, it'll give you a comprehensive view of what is on the dark web and your passwords, what security vulnerabilities you have with your computer. It'll look at if you have any password security issues. It does a bunch of this and more. You can check out at the QR code details, and we've got a special offer for you. Code RISK50 at checkout will knock $50 off that price code because you're a faithful listener and watcher of this podcast. Thank you again. Code RISK50 will take $50 off. Moving on. As I switch the banners back to the newsletter. Okay. Let's go ahead and dive into government. Oh boy. I feel like I give you government a lot, and you're going to come across like the crotchety man in the hills, like the government's out to get me. Yeah. But in this case, I
guy on the hills.
You live on a goat farm, man. You fit the stereotype. That's all I can say.
I was trying to come and get my milk. As long as I got my eggs and milk, I'm fine. Yeah.
So
earlier this month.
Yeah, the headline. We should probably start the headline. Washington's new AI rule is a rule about having fewer rules.
Yeah.
Talk about this.
I mean, it's an executive order, so it's a motion, but it really signals that tension between the Trump administration, which is led by somebody who's very business minded and forward progress, in terms of in capitalism, and the regulators that are looking out for the little guy and everybody's interest and bureaucrats and stuff, all that stuff, that want to try to figure out safety. That there's a tension there. The Trump administration signed the Executive Order 14409, promoting advanced artificial intelligence, innovation, and security, trying to clear the way to keep the pace of development in a secure fashion, which is just sort of like a, hey guys, we know you got to keep up and stay competitive globally, but don't forget about the security in the process.
It's fascinating. We haven't had a fight state versus federal government like this in my lifetime, the last 20 years at this level, right? Where there's such a disconnect of, just politics kind of coming across at the state and federal level. I mean, we've seen Colorado, Illinois, New Jersey, Maine, all of these guys are starting to come up with AI legislation on the state level. And the fear on the business side, like you said, is business oriented, right? Like, if we have a patchwork of laws, how can anybody operate an AI business, which by default for most of them is internet based, right? Like, it transcends state rules. It also is, been labeled as a national security thing in terms of they want to make sure that we are in a competitive place against competitors like China, and they want one strategy. Way I took it, this is sort of like a nudge to Congress. Hey, here's a framework you can start to base actual legislation on. I don't think, and I say this carefully because I can't speak to the White House, I don't think they plan to govern by executive action indefinitely on this. They can't by default, right? Like, it's not binding. Like,
no,
congressional. If they're going to achieve this, Congress has to get involved. My take on this was this kind of starts laying out the direction of what Congress could build around in theory if they were to follow the Trump administration's direction. That's how I took it.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll.
Yeah, I'm not commenting on whether or not that'll actually happen. Does feel like the states are way more unified, and Illinois is probably going to get its stuff done before Congress gets its button here. This is going to be
for sure. Yeah,
I do see this. I'm going to make a prediction here, which is I do think the states are going to pass stuff before Congress gets around to it. I think it's setting up a showdown when Congress inevitably overrides them. Whenever Congress gets around to doing it in the override, like, this sets down a state versus federal government showdown.
Yeah, I was telling somebody, I was like, man, I wish I could just go forward in time 200 years just to read the history books on the time we're living through right now, because it's just so interesting how it could play out, and it could so many variables. It's just hard to predict.
Well, moving on to variables and hard to predict. Definitely looks like Microsoft and OpenAI are going through a breakup phase. So those of you who, unless you lived on a rock, don't know this, Microsoft threw over $10 billion in OpenAI's coffers at one point. And the news this week in the headline is that they are, and I'm going to read the headline actually before I go into things. Microsoft spent billions on OpenAI, and then they quietly started building their own AI. Billions. Okay. With that, let's talk about this for a second. So they invested in OpenAI in a partnership, but then costs started getting out of control. And we've seen stories trickle through about Microsoft's Claude usage. Even Microsoft, with its endless war chest, was feeling the sting of OpenAI, of just AI usage in general, right? It's costly. It is very costly, guys, and the cost is going up. So one of the things that they are moving on in their strategy is they want to make their own in-house AI models, right? They want to have a deterrent on the costs. That's because a lot of that premium of that cost is obviously the training. We talked about that, right? It's super expensive to train an AI model. And so they're taking the approach of, they spent $10 billion, but maybe it makes more sense in the long run to train our own models. So long term, we have a lower cost center around our AI usage. I think the biggest thing, it makes sense. Owning the model means Microsoft sets the price. You can tune them for their own products with Copilot, which is desperately behind, in my opinion, of the AI products. It's starting to make some comeback, but it is behind. and it's not the mercy of one supplier of the very core technology they're trying to bake in the Windows operating system, right? Like
Right.
OpenAI pulls the plug, Copilot on Windows falls apart. I always kind of questioned why they didn't do this in the first place.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. Of like, if it's so obvious, why didn't they do it? So that leads me to start to think: do they know something about a certain company
I
that we
think
don't
that
know?
I think it's more than that, man. I think that the honest truth is the costs are growing even to a point where a juggernaut like Microsoft can't pay them without wincing. And Microsoft has some of the most liquid cash reserves on the planet when it comes to corporations. So if they're straining under their budgets, you know it's real. They have more room to flex than most. Um, I think this is pointing towards the overall centralization of AI. Someone told me a long time ago if they were going to pick a warhorse to win this fight, it'd be Microsoft because Microsoft's not the flashiest. They're not the most technically edged, but they have the most endurance of any tech company on the planet. They just outweight all their competition through slow and incremental gains until they dominate. And that's kind of feel like that's basically what their plan is. We're going to cut costs, we're going to build this in house, and we're just going to wait out the competition. Like you said, maybe they're seeing something on the thing of there might be an opportunity in the market in about 18 months where they can be ready to compete at a level they previously couldn't. It's just crazy. Like $10 billion.
Yeah,
And
that's hard.
to reach the point where you're willing to walk away from that. I'm not saying they're fully walking away from it, but even for Microsoft, 10 billion is nothing to snuff at.
It's a strategic move, and I can't imagine making a strategic move in the tens of billions of dollars. That's a big ship to turn.
Well, we have a few minutes here. We got to get to the end of the story. So let's go to our business and finance story, which the headline, I'm actually pretty impressed by this. A 7-year-old company is now worth more than most airlines. If you do anything in accounts payable, you've probably heard of Ramp. Ramp came in my opinion, I saw a lot of our customers be on Bill.com. Ramp came in and ate Bill.com's lunch money. Everybody switched over to Ramp and for their accounts payable and their credit, their charge carding. And it's a pretty attractive product. I've looked at it more than once for ourselves even. I never pulled the trigger on it, but I see it, right? And they managed to pull in a fresh $750 million in fresh financing led by Iconic, by the venture fund Iconic. The round set a $44 billion valuation on the 7-year-old firm. Imagine in 7 years getting your company to a $44 billion valuation. That is actually incredible. And investors keep buying that Ramp's AI can now handle the tedious finance work of a back office. All the reconciliation, all the collections. We're in a cycle where demand for software that quietly cuts costs, it holds up across the business industry, I think. And it's become one of the clearest examples of AI moving from demo to daily ledger savings. They've actually taken it from proof of concept to, per the investors, they feel like it's actually materially in production in a mature ecosystem state. The tagline at the end was a company that polices expense reports just expensed itself to a $44 billion valuation. The receipt writes itself. I'm like, that's funny. That's pretty good, actually. Okay. Last story for this week, and we're right on time. AI in real life headline: making a phone call without hearing a single word. This is one of those feel-good stories. I really do, but I'm curious. What was your take on this?
This is, I mean, again, this kind of like the whole doctor's notes that we talked about last time. This is another area where I go, this is a great application of it. 50 million Americans live with some degree of hearing loss. So to be able to have something that's AI, I'm surprised this is kind of new now at this stage, but hey, I'll take what I can get. Rilo, formerly called Nagish, is a startup that's fully automated phone call translation, voice to text, and back text to voice. So a person that has hearing loss can take a normal phone call instead of this whole TTY thing where both sides are having to adapt. The person calling can speak like they're speaking normally. The person who is hard of hearing can receive it as text, reply as text, and the person that's on the other end of the line hears a real human voice again. Really,
I like
cool.
it. There is, and for those of you who are here, like, why are we talking about AI? Because we talk about the negative hype cycle of AI so much, but there's real applications that I think can make meaningful human good. Like, just because we choose the trajectory as a society and as a culture where AI lands at, And there are real values here that we can add and enhance the human condition, especially in healthcare. We keep coming back to healthcare. Man, I keep getting opened up my eyes of it's really just a slow industry. If anything, they are slow walking adoption that could meaningfully change people's lives. This is just another great example of that. I never thought of that, but being a deaf person trying to live in a world where everybody talks on the phone, that's got to be incredibly frustrating. This could be a great.
And what's kind of neat about this story too, that's a part of this is, again, getting into the government regulatory thing. The FCC approved Rilo for federal relay programs, so that means they can make this part of a free service for people with disabilities, and that's pretty cool. Well, these guys also just raised $85 million this year or this month from their funding, so there's a lot behind this stuff as well in terms of support, and it's just kind of cool to see.
People, I mean, it's one of those things where the economics makes sense, the humanity makes sense. I like it. People need to hear. They need to use the phone. You're going to have a customer base, and it makes their life better. Win, win, win. As long as you stick the landing. Please stick the landing.
Yes, please.
The recurring theme of these good stories. It's great, 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 and they miss the landing. Dang it! I'll stick the landing, guy.
I'll say get a clue.
But it's. All right, take a look at this week. This is a shorter episode because we're a little tight on time this week, guys. But honestly, AI is marching forward. I still stand by our original things. The economics are getting weird. Companies as big as Microsoft are starting to look at cutting costs, which tells me the direction the cycle is going in terms of we're entering a new world of AI efficiency, getting the maximum amount of usage out of AI, and then government regulation. State and government are on a collision course, or state and federal. I have no idea who wins. I have no idea the outcome, but I think it's pretty clear to see that it's going to happen, and probably not that long. As soon as we've already seen, Illinois has been pretty aggressive on getting stuff out the door. So, yeah, I'm your host Logan Edmonds. I'm joined by my co-host Patrick Hoder. Say hi, Patrick.
Hello.
This is Artificially Informed. Your week in AI. This week in AI, and we will see you next week with the same batch of terrifying, amazing, and overall exhilarating news. What a time to be alive.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, guys.